5 years in a healthy home, a non-toxic home. We made it, guys! In case you are unaware, my name's Leanna, my husband's Dave. We moved in 2018 into a healthy home that I spent years carefully designing, testing the materials. I consulted lots of people, read more peer-reviewed studies than I'd like to admit, and read books upon books, stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of books, including textbooks from the 90s on ventilation, all these sorts of things, all sorts of mold preventative information. I took courses online for home inspection, for mold, and just for general home inspection, that sort of thing. So to say that I did my due diligence, well, I think that's quite obvious. In case you aren't aware, we have a book, Poison, Filled by Western Medicine, Modern Construction, and Corporate Interests. It's not a thick book, it's around 100 pages or so, and it shares my journey. If you are listening to this, then the world at large, the multinational corporations have failed you and they are actively harming you. Now, I had a collection of diagnoses. In fact, I had so many diagnoses that it was literally pages and pages worth. My food allergies were just pages and pages and pages and pages. When we were building the home, I actually became entirely unable to eat anything at all. And a J-tube or a G-tube, that's not an option for me, because you have to have something that you can tolerate to consume via the G-tube or the J-tube. There's nothing that was on the market that I would have been able to tolerate, because they all had the natural options had either bananas or pepper in them. I was allergic to both bananas and peppers, extremely bad at the time. Now, I have since been able to eat, as long as it's real food, pretty much whatever I want, as long as it's real food. As long as it hasn't been chemically altered, genetically altered, all these sorts of things. I eat lots of weeds. We've got a video up on foraging with my favorite foraging resources. I was using 5 to 7 EpiPens a week. And I was in anaphylaxis almost all the time. I'm diagnosed with severe mast cell activation syndrome, severe multiple chemical sensitivities, severe electromagnetic hypersensitivity syndrome. I have cured a number of diagnoses, both before we moved in and since. Everything takes time. When you have pages and pages and pages of diagnoses, they're not all gonna just go away in a minute. But at the same time, when I moved in, I was able to eat again immediately upon moving in. Yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Just that in and of itself, being able to eat again, that's a huge win. And now that it's been 5 years since we moved in, remember I said that I was using 5 to 7 EpiPens a week? I've used 1 in 5 years now. 1. Now that doesn't mean that I haven't been in anaphylaxis, because I have. But I treat it naturally now. I'll link to the alternatives that I use. Always consult your doctor about everything, by the way, because you could be allergic to some of those options. They could be inappropriate for you. They could interact with something that you're taking. Everyone's different. So that's a win. Now, I also have a severe latex allergy, and natural rubber latex is not a healthy product. I know that every other person in the world almost putting out content about living a natural, healthy lifestyle says that it's the best thing ever, but it starts out naturally as toxic. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it isn't toxic. I mean, would you go out and just randomly eat mushrooms? Because people have died from doing that. Just saying. Would you eat poison hemlock? I hope not, because it's poison. It's natural. Asbestos is natural. It starts out toxic, and then typically, I think it's thiorams, some different chemicals that are fungicides are added whether it's organic or whether it's certified organic or not. Check out our video and article on paint for information about certification, because that's a scam. These products, over 40,000 products, are made from natural rubber latex, which we're told is natural and safe. But in order to make these products, an immense amount of chemicals are required to be added. And those chemicals don't just disappear. They're still in the final product, even if they're certified organic. And you know that certification programs are derived from the industry itself, correct? Yeah. So the latex allergy itself has improved drastically for me. I still, if I touch it accidentally, it's a problem for me. Airborne doesn't really seem to be as much of it. Okay, so I'm technically type 1 airborne anaphylactic to natural rubber latex. I don't think I've reacted airborne to latex for quite some time now. I think I reacted to some rubber bands 2 or 3 years ago, perhaps. But that's it. That doesn't mean that I intentionally bring those sorts of things in my home. But I used to be unable to be around the packages from the mail, and I used to be unable to open the mail. There used to be a whole protocol for my husband to deal with it. I can deal with the mail now. I can deal with packages. If I handle some packages that come in the mail, I'm able to do so without really repercussion. And that actually speaks to the chemical sensitivity side as well. Because, let's face it, especially since 2020, the world has increasingly grown more toxic. There's more chemicals being used, more chemicals being sprayed on these sorts of things. And of course, natural rubber latex allergy and chemical sensitivities, multiple mast cell activation syndrome, EHS, all of these things are, you can just consider them very similar because they're all an immune response. They all involve immune responses. They're all your body saying, this is not okay for me. This is a problem for me. So the latex allergy definitely has improved. Now, there is no cure for latex allergy. Be ye not deceived. And quite frankly, I know that some people have claimed that they have cured multiple chemical sensitivities. But generally, their statement, they end up having to retract their statement because they end up hurting themselves. They end up going into situations in which they otherwise wouldn't have gone into and exposing themselves to things that they otherwise wouldn't have as a result of programs that, speaking from my psychological background, okay, my academic background is psychology, my professional background is psychology. I went to a psychiatrist for 7 years to learn how to cope with fibromyalgia, to learn coping skills. I studied cults. I studied brainwashing. I see brainwashing for what it is. So people pay to be brainwashed into believing that they are cured, and then they end up hurting themselves. So just as when you go to, for example, to have surgery, that you are given a chemical. That pharmaceutical is a chemical, okay? It is. Chemicals and pharmaceuticals are the same thing. So you're given that chemical for various reasons. If you're having surgery, then it's to knock you out potentially. Some of these same chemicals are used today. Modern construction, plastics, fungicides, herbicides, biocides. Now, when you are exposed to this airborne, it's going to have a different impact, potentially, than if it's injected into your body or given to you via in your bloodstream. Now, you wouldn't say to someone who's having surgery and is given a medication, a chemical, to knock them out so that they can have the surgery, you just need to fight it off. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You must be chemically sensitive. Would you? because these self-same chemicals are used in other applications. And when a person such as myself breathes it in and has brain fog as a result, then we're told there's something wrong with us. That's not true. Lots of doctors, lots of chiropractors in particular, have realized the toxic world that they're living in. They've detoxed their home. They've detoxed their diet. They have addressed non-native EMFs. Some of them are even aware of the problems with natural rubber latex, which we've got an article with plenty of links demonstrating that natural rubber latex is toxic. And also you might check out our coconut coir, COIR, article for additional information and additional links to peer-reviewed literature. They've detoxed their lives, and now they're chemically sensitive because their body says, whoa, this is not okay. This is a harmful chemical. Now, they weren't chemically sensitive before, but once your body realizes and you start listening to it, and you get in tune with it, this is good for my body, this is bad for my body, you're going to be labeled as chemically sensitive. Even though there's not actually anything wrong with you, you're just human and you're listening to your body. A lot of people today are in such utter brain fog, and they have no idea that they're even in brain fog all of the time. We know this because my husband works with people and they are in such utter, complete brain fog. Not everyone, but a lot of people are, because they're actively drugging themselves. And some of us, of course, are being drugged without our consent in various ways. I don't quite understand why people buy into the corporate-derived narrative that if your body tells you a chemical is not okay for you, that you have a problem, it's your fault. You do realize that's a corporate narrative, correct? Our bodies aren't designed to be poisoned all of the time. They simply aren't. So, what's the issue here? Why are people still convinced? Well, cognitive dissonance is real, and unfortunately people trust multinational corporations, their propaganda, more than they trust what their own body is simply telling them. They don't want to listen to their bodies. Because it's an inconvenient truth that modern construction is literally killing us. It's an inconvenient truth that natural rubber latex is toxic and harmful. It's a known sensitizing agent. The thiram in it, there's all sorts of issues with that. Go look it up. This information is that you can actually find this on PubMed. Modern construction failed me. Modern construction's full of natural rubber latex, the materials. The pharmaceutical industry failed me. Western medicine failed me. I was undiagnosed with most of my issues for decades. Most of the things that I ended up diagnosed with, I diagnosed myself first. And then I found a doctor who was knowledgeable, and they said, oh yeah, classic. Classic insert diagnosis here. Now, testing, don't trust the tests. When it comes to food allergy tests, latex allergy tests, chemical sensitivity tests, listen to your body. You have to listen to your body. Now, if you are in a position, like so many, where you're unable to build your own home, you're in an apartment, that sort of thing, there's still a lot you can do to improve your health. I actually healed fibromyalgia while I was still living in mold and modern construction. I also addressed a number of other things. I addressed a lot of issues via food. Food is huge. Food is one of the number one ways that you can improve your health. And I did so with very little money. There's a lot of things that you can grow in pots, out on a balcony, even in your windowsill or windowsills. Start with what goes in your body, what you're putting in your body, and then address what's on your body, what you're putting on your body. Are you putting chemicals on your body? Then move on to cleaners, furniture, items around you. Take it one step at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You won't be healed in a day. I'm not healed yet. This is a journey. This is not a immediate addressal of all issues. As far as the EMF issues go, it's actually worse for me. I have mercury in my teeth. Mercury is not good to have in your teeth. I tried to find someone who I could trust to remove it years ago. I couldn't find anyone. One of the issues is that a lot of dentists, including biological dentists, use latex gloves. That would have killed me. Not okay. That would not have been helpful. And also, if you have the mercury taken out of your mouth and it's done wrong, you generally end up worse for the wear. So I haven't actually left our property, been able to leave our property since June of 2019 because my sensitivity to radio frequencies is so extreme. Now, if you're saying, wait, that's not real, I can't see them. Thermal, ionizing versus non-ionizing. Do you really understand what you're talking about? Go read Wireless Silent Spring. Look at the resources. It's very well cited. I'll also link below to a documentary from, I believe it was 2013, that addresses some of these questions, addresses some of these issues. Stop believing industry. Failed by Western medicine, modern construction, and corporate interests. Corporations are failing you, corporations are harming you, and they don't care. They're happy to hurt you. And they're happy to continue to hurt you and then make you pay to hurt yourself. This is the world in which we're living in today. So when it comes to the EMF issues, I'm a bit at a standstill. And quite frankly, it's only getting worse because I eat. And even if I didn't eat, those vapors still are emitted from the amalgams in my teeth. It is what it is. I can't go anywhere to get them out. So I'm at a standstill with that. And the radiation level is continuing to increase in the world via the satellite dirigible balloon launches. I can't do anything about that. I can't control that. It is what it is, again. Now, here's an example about the chemical sensitivity, how it's improved. I'm sitting here right now. There must have been a very large truck that went by. Because I'm smelling gas fumes right now. Now, before I moved in, my throat would have been closed by now. My ears would have been itchy. I would be having to inject emergency epinephrine right now. I'm not. My right ear is slightly itchy. My throat is slightly sore right now. And I'm a little bit annoyed right now. But that's it. That's the extent of it. Like I said, 5 years ago, my throat would be shut right now. No. You can hear I'm speaking clearly. I'm okay. I'm okay. But my body is saying, hey, you do notice this, right? And yeah, I'm telling my body, yeah, I notice it. Everything's fine. Everything's okay. You're going to be just fine. We're going to be all right. You have to listen to your body, but at the same time, recognize that you are in control of your brain. You get to decide the thoughts that are in your brain. Think of your brain like a stream. Thought comes in, you can pick it up, hold it, entertain it if you want to, or you can let it go right back on out. You don't have to focus on the things that are problematic that you can't do anything about. You don't have to be enslaved to your thoughts, because you get to decide what you think about. You get to choose your thoughts. And there's great freedom in recognizing this and embracing it and taking control of it. You don't need anyone, you don't need to pay anyone to learn to do this. It's free. You're welcome. I just saved you hundreds of dollars. So I've already addressed the chemical sensitivities. I mean, yes, so in a way they have worsened. And the way that they have worsened is that I smell things now that I didn't used to smell. For example, our refrigerator is a used refrigerator. It's been here 5 years, and I smell some fragrance to it now that I didn't smell 5, 6, 7 years ago. Maybe it was 6 years ago that he bought it. Bought it 6 or 7 years ago. Because we bought it and then let it outgas for a year or two. But it doesn't really bother me, besides the fact that it's annoying to me. So I smell it. So in that way it is worse, because my body is picking up on more things than it used to chemically. But that's just my body saying, hey, you're listening. Good job, Leanna, for listening. I appreciate that. I know you're listening. I just want you to know, hey, this here is not such a good thing. It stinks. It is what it is. You can only do one thing at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. There are things that you can do to improve your health. Whether it's a latex allergy, you can improve the latex allergy and address some of the comorbid issues. You know, often people with latex allergy end up chemically sensitive. Often people who are chemically sensitive end up with latex allergies for good reason, because all of the chemicals that are in latex, and latex is a sensitizer, a sensitizing agent, so it's more likely that you're going to end up sensitized to those chemicals that are in natural rubber latex. It's very logical, isn't it? And if you have if you start out with a latex allergy, those chemicals are in the latex. You're sensitized to the latex, so you're going to probably end up sensitized to some of the chemicals as well. This modern world, this modern toxic world. Obviously, moving into the home did indeed change my life. As I said, there are some things that you can only do so much about. The EHS, I'm not giving up here, okay? Despite the mercury, I'm testing out various supplements. You know, I've tested out NAC. I'm trying chaga mushroom. Rosemary is next for me to try. I'm trying different things. I also supporting detox is very important, regardless of your situation, because this world is just constantly poisoning us. And I know if you go to Google and you read Healthline, they'll say you can't do anything to detox. Well, the actual research that was not funded by multinational corporations that actively tell you to pay them to poison yourself, that says otherwise. And anecdotal data, which is absolutely 100% overwhelming, says otherwise regarding detoxification. Obviously, the less that you are exposed to things, the less you have to detox. Now, I initially thought, and I warned my husband, that I thought that I might have a Herxheimer reaction, a really bad one, when I moved in. And a Herxheimer reaction is basically your body, for example, let's say you go on a camping trip, and it's in an area where you turn off all your cell phones and you don't have any Wi-Fi around you. And you're, for example, like I am right now, sitting on the ground, getting in touch with the ground, earthing, grounding. You're in a fairly pristine wooded environment with higher oxygen levels because of trees. Trees, plants, oxygen. They produce oxygen. We kind of need that. And you are in an area where it's not chemically treated, and so you aren't using your typical makeup, your typical soap, your typical chemical products, lotion all over your body. In that case, you might encounter a Herxheimer reaction where you feel really bad because your body says, oh, yes, this is living. This is health. This is life. I can detox and release these things that I have been holding on now. And you feel terrible. That's a Herxheimer reaction. I thought I would have that moving into our healthy home, our non-toxic home. But I didn't. I actually warned my husband. I said, it could be 6 months. I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was so intentionally supporting detox. By the way, eating beets is an easy way to support detox. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Sorry. I'm not sure how I escaped having that Herxheimer reaction, but I'm grateful that I did. If you are working, towards nothing is mold free. I need to be clear about here. Nothing is mold free. There's going to be specks of dust in your home no matter where you are. Now, right now, I'm just going to be honest here. I'm always honest. My house is very dusty right now because I know it's kind of pointless for me to do a lot of deep cleaning right now because I know we've got some construction projects planned in which things are going to get really dusty. So that's that. But it's not bothering me. It's not bothering me at all. I don't have an air purifier. I know that a lot of people think that that's just essential, but if you are mindful about what you're bringing into your home, if you start with a healthy home, if you don't start with a healthy home, then who knows, you might need one. But I don't have an air purifier, haven't had an air purifier. When I really could have used one, we didn't have the finances. I mean, when we could have used one years ago before we moved in here, we didn't really have the finances for one that was of decent quality. The air purifiers that are under, say, probably $500 or $600, they're not really worth it. You're pretty much just throwing your money down the drain in that case. I still don't have an air purifier. Things are dusty inside the house. Doesn't really bother me at all. It's not a problem. And yes, I know, I understand all of the things that are in dust and that are on dust. And yes, I understand all of these things, of course. But if you have such limited exposure to things, then your body isn't going to be in overload. Just like with a latex allergy, there's this concept of a bucket, like a latex of a bucket, and this is the same case with inflammatory issues. Same case with mast cell activation syndrome, where you just have an exposure, and everyone is a drop. Some exposures are really bad, and so you got a quart of water poured in or a cup of water poured in. Some are really minor, so you got a little drop. And once the water level gets to a certain point, all it needs is one drop of water for that bucket to overflow. And if my bucket is low, so the latex allergy is better, the multiple chemical sensitivity is better, the electromagnetic hypersensitivity is not better. It is much worse, but I can't blame my house for that. We do have a standing seam metal roof, which I strongly recommend. And if you can design your home to be mostly a Faraday cage, that can be helpful. If not that, then concrete is very effective. We actually made we didn't want to build, but we couldn't find anything that wasn't moldy, or that they didn't accept our offer. So there's actually a house a few houses down from us, from the property that, we ultimately purchased, that is concrete with a standing seam metal roof. And there's no cell phone signal inside. It felt amazing inside. So that might be something to consider, is a concrete home if you're EMF sensitive, or if you just want to shield as much as you can from those fields. Which, again, I don't understand why it's even debatable anymore. The World Health Organization literally classifies EMFs as what I think, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's a class 2B carcinogen, human carcinogen. And then you've got the study that was paid for by the I believe it's the National Institute of Health. It was a 10-year study. I can't remember how much. I think it was a 10-year study. I can't remember how much they paid for it. They found evidence that, wow, EMFs hurt. EMFs are harmful biologically. Clear evidence, and I quote, clear evidence, end quote. That's not from me. That is a statement from the National Institute of Health study. What more do you need? What more proof do you need besides the countless people who are telling you, hey, this hurts. This hurt. This small cell tower went up, or my electric company put up a smart meter, and now I have these symptoms. Have you noticed that there are some people with heart issues who have signs up regarding their meter? Have you noticed that there are some people who have heart issues that have signs up that say you cannot bring cell phones here? These are people with diagnosed heart problems because their doctor knows what will happen to them. If you have thoughts, that's electricity. If you have a heartbeat, that's empirically detectable by an electrocardiogram. We are electrical creatures, so electricity is going to impact us. External electricity is going to impact us, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Similarly, chemicals, aka drugs, are going to impact us. Natural rubber latex is full of drugs. That's going to impact us. All of these things impact us. Now, should you build a healthy home, a trailer, a shed? I would recommend building as small as possible, planning for expansion later if necessary, as healthy as possible, as small as possible and as healthy as possible. So, 5 years later, and a whole lot of ramblings later in this video, was it worth it to spend the inheritance that I received from my parents on a healthy home? Well, it saved my life, for one. Because so if I was injecting emergency epinephrine, that means my throat was closed, which is most likely, or I was in GI anaphylaxis that I could not stop for hours. And GI anaphylaxis eventually will kill you if you can't stop it. Anaphylaxis will kill you eventually if you don't stop it. So was it worth it? Yes, lots of things have improved. One thing has not improved. I have cured pages of diagnoses since moving in, which I'm gradually sharing some of these things. Like I've got a nerve damage video to get up about how I'm addressing that, how I addressed that previously as well. Food. Spoiler alert, primarily it was food. What I don't eat and what I do eat. What I stopped eating and what I started eating. As far as nerve damage goes. Again, pages upon pages upon pages of diagnoses. Cured. Gone. They're not here anymore. Some of them were before the healthy home. Some of them are since we built the healthy home. I tried living in a tent. I share that in this book. I tried all sorts of things. actually spent a decent amount of money trying other things, some of which had a decent amount of empirical evidence, some of which had very little empirical evidence, but it didn't seem like it would hurt anything. A lot of things didn't work. I'm going to tell you that right now. A lot of things that are out there are scams. A lot of things don't work. Some things I researched, they were very obvious scams. A lot of people are desperate for health today. They want to feel better. Let me assure you, there are a lot of things you can do that either don't cost you much money or don't cost you any money at all. And some things that such as cleaning, you can save a ton of money on cleaning supplies by just going back to the basics of cleaning. And our next book will be on cleaning, and then the one after that will be on latex allergy. But there's only so much time and energy in the day, of course, especially when persons such as myself, I get fried from the EMFs. From the specifically radio frequencies. Some people are more sensitive to dirty electricity, others to electrical impulses, others to magnetic impulses. For me, it's radio frequencies. It's different for everyone. Everything, chemicals, it's different for everyone. Different people are sensitive to different things, and this is why the research is so challenging, because you have people, for example, who are sensitive to BPA chemicals, but not really sensitive to pesticides or, for example, glyphosate. So they're not really sensitive to glyphosate, but they're super sensitive to BPA plastic. Or they're sensitive to this plastic, but they're not really sensitive to this plastic. So that's why research in this area is so challenging. Not just the chemical aspect, but also the EMF aspect. And of course the latex aspect. You have a massive industry, over 40,000 products as far as what's in the peer-reviewed literature, and that was over a decade ago that was declared. I want to say it was maybe 2 decades ago that was declared. So if you think of over 40,000 products, there's going to be a lot of money in that. Where there is money, there is control. Where there is control, they control the information. So the information you have access to, including our website, and including our videos, including our social media, we're super shadow banned everywhere. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, because the information that I share with you is a threat to corporations, to multinational corporations. We're threatening billions, if not trillions or quadrillions of dollars here. That is quite the economic control that we're talking about here, isn't it? So do you really think that those people are going to be okay with actual science, actual facts? No. And if you understand how science actually works, if you understand how academia works, how the funding works, even if you, for example, pay for your own study and do your own study, and it's honest and it says, hey, this thing is bad for you. You're thinking ahead for your funding, because it's generally publish or perish. You're thinking ahead for your funding because you want to maintain your career. And if you say this thing, say cell phones cause harm. By the way, have you read the legal disclosures on your cell phone? You might want to do that. You might want to read those legal disclosures, by the way. Every single sentence, every single word. They're very telling. So if you do your own study, you fund your own study, it says cell phones are bad, cell phones cause harm, then in the future, you're not going to get any funding from Big Telecom. You're not going to get any funding from any of their sub organizations. You're not going to get anything from any funding sources that have anything to do with Big Telecom. You're not going to get anything from any funding sources that have anything to do with modern technology. You're probably not going to get any funding from any appliance manufacturers, because most appliances today integrate with the Internet of Things. You're probably not going to get any funding from the pharmaceutical industry, because that actually, so the pharmaceutical industry and the medical supply industry, medical device industry, that's the word, that's the phrase I was looking for. So the medical device industry uses, and the pharmaceutical industry both use radio frequencies, such as, the patches, not patches, but I'm not entirely certain what they're called, but there are various devices that use radio frequencies that are placed on your skin, such as for diabetes monitoring. You have Fitbits and all of these sorts of things. So if you design your own study, fund your own study, do a solid study, no study is perfect, and you find something that flies in the face of the corporate narrative, you have just wrecked your career. That's what scientists have to think about today. I feel very bad for scientists today. Most of them, because they are in a pickle. They are in a seriously difficult situation where if they have the wrong finding, their career is over. Now, we all know what happens to whistleblowers. Whistleblowers get whacked. You go to the news media as a whistleblower, as a scientist, there are entire websites that are devoted to this sort of thing. And this is not a new thing. Okay, this is not new. This has been going on for decades. I actually first saw this in regards to cigarettes. There are some who say that wireless communication, wireless technology, is the new cigarette. It will come out at some point, probably. But at this point, I question whether most people will even notice anything. I mean, because in the past few months, we've had all of these things that have come out about the CIA, and there's something about 9/11 and things that I would expect that were in the mainstream news that I would expect people to be very upset about. They weren't upset about it, but they were very upset about beer. And I don't know, I'm not commenting on the beer thing. I don't know anything about the beer thing. I just know that people were mad about the beer thing. That's all I know. That's literally all I know. I don't do anything with politics. I don't pay attention to what's going on in the media. I see headlines. And I see mainstream media. Shouldn't people be mad about the things that has been disclosed by the CIA or about the CIA in the past few months? But they're mad about some sort of beer thing? Like I mean, wow, this is the world in which we're living in. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me. You've got people such as myself sounding the alarm as a canary in a coal mine, and people are angry about beer. Like, people should be angry I'm not saying you should be angry. Don't be angry. Nothing to be angry about. Anger means you're being controlled. Same thing with fear. So, people are actively being poisoned. I'm sharing it in my book. We have article upon article upon article upon article about article about how you are being poisoned. In a lot of cases, you're paying to be poisoned. But people are mad about beer. They're not angry about being poisoned, but they're angry about beer because they're being told to be angry about beer. They're not being told to be angry about being poisoned. Can you find healing without a healthy home? Yes. Without moving? Yes. Most likely, it depends though. If there's cigarette smoke coming into your house, into your apartment, we had to move multiple times due to that. Some mold, we moved multiple times due to mold, because there's some mold is just really, really, really bad. I mean, we've all heard about the black mold on the news and that sort of thing from 20 years ago. A lot of houses have these problems. That's why we ended up building. Obviously, if you're really wanting to improve your health, then yeah, building anew is the way to go. But there's a lot you can do in purchasing a home. There's a lot you can do in if you're renting. You may not need to go to this extreme. In the meantime, until next time, just remember that you get to decide what you think about. And yes, 5 years in, there are absolutely no regrets in building our home. Did we make mistakes? Yes. If you're planning to build a healthy home, a tiny home, whatever, will you make mistakes? Absolutely yes. But at least you did it. At least you'll be able to say that you did it, you tried. And most people who have been able to move into a healthier structure, nothing's going to be perfect, do find benefit from it. Even people such as, like, there are some doctors in our area who built healthy homes, but they didn't really have health problems, but they knew that modern construction was not the way to go. And so they built healthy homes and they found improvement. Some diagnoses just vanished like that. And they weren't huge, significant diagnoses. They were pretty minor diagnoses. Can you find health with a healthy home? Yes. Can you find health without a healthy home? It depends. But you can probably improve your health in some ways, as long as you're not in an environment where cigarette smoke is coming in, because that's typically one of the most difficult things to deal with. And as long as you don't have, some of the worser molds to deal with. But at the same time, when you're moving, you never know. You might be going from the frying pan into the fire. Things are hard. Life is tough. Life was tough before 2020. Life has just been even harder since. Just in general. We're constantly being drugged without our consent. It's not okay to drug people. It's not, because chemicals are drugs. And so you've got people applying pesticides, herbicides, biocides, all of these other sorts of chemicals, using cigarettes and drugging people with the over 150 different chemicals, I think, that are in cigarettes. That's not okay. It's not okay to hurt other people. But this is the world in which we live in. So knowledge is power. This is why I'm always trying to share free or inexpensive ways that you can improve your health without going to the extreme of building a healthy home, because there are a lot of things that you can do. Control what you can. What you can't control, don't worry about. Don't focus on it. Don't think about it all the time. Don't talk about it all the time, because if you're talking about it, that means you're focusing on it. That means, so out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you are talking about how something is constantly, how something is problematic for you all the time, then that's what's in your heart. You need to have love in your heart, joy, peace, long suffering. If you're in a situation in which there's not really much you can do, which is, I validate that. Okay? That's absolutely possible. There are a lot of people who are chemically sensitive, who have mast cell activation syndrome and other issues. There's not much they can do financially because they are living below the poverty level. We lived, I don't know if it was below, it would have been below the poverty level ourselves for a while. But I still, even though we were living below the poverty level, I still improved our health. I still saved money on cleaning supplies. I still saved money on, personal care products, and that sort of thing. There's a lot you can do that you can actually save money on. You just have to learn it. You have to be open to trying new things, open to maybe selling off a bunch of your things so that you can afford something. Sell off the things you don't need on eBay. Sell off your ceramic cat collection, or sell off your collection of, I don't know, 1980s toys or something like that, so that you can afford to buy something that can help you. You may need an air purifier where you are in order to make it through. I encourage you to take control of your health regardless of what situation you are in, financially or physically, because there are things you can do, and I hope you explore our website because we've got a lot of articles on there that can help you. Whether you're building, whether you're not building, regardless of where you're at in life. Thanks so much for being here. Have a most beautiful and blessed day. Non-toxic out.